Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week where Chris and I drive Nathan crazy with our opinions. We are your hosts, Jamie, Nathan, and Chris. This is Industry Standard. This week we are talking about Ari Aster's Midsommar, starring Florence Pugh, Jack Raynor, and Wilhelm Blumgreen. In this drama horror mystery, a couple travels to Scandinavia to visit a rural hometown's fabled Swedish midsummer festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
A strange and bizarre competition?
he's right, but yeah.
Okay.
Let me just clarify. This is straight from IMDb. So
You mean this isn't your
you-
own words, Jamie?
this is straight
I would
from
never have
IMDb.
Oh
Yes.
my
So if you
god,
have an
that's
issue-
it. The show's ruined.
If you have an issue with that quick synopsis, I say take it up with IMDb. You know what, Chris? You take it away this
Oh
time. Tell us what you thought
no,
about
because like, well, I really wished for a format where Nathan gives his opinion and I disagree. But look, it's a strange film. It's most certainly not the strangest film out there, and I like strange, so I did like the film. I don't think I fully understood the purpose or the director's idea behind it, because to me it's just it's a film about a breakup, but it's a cult film. It's about a cult, and I was kind of left at the end of it with, I think, more questions at the end than I did at the start of the film. So I mean, I liked it, and there's a lot of things that I liked about the film, but I think there's a few, if not just as many things I didn't like about the film. I'm gonna hand it over to Nathan.
Just so our listeners know, Nathan was shaking his head vigorously.
Always
at,
shaking
Chris's
his
opinion
head.
there. So,
Well,
Nathan, take it away.
I'll start off, I guess, by rebuking something that Chris said. The film isn't about a cult, and I wouldn't even say it's necessarily about a breakup. I would say it's more about this woman, Danny, and her getting over this tragedy that she suffered. Obviously, then the slow collapse of her relationship with her boyfriend as well.
Another way I looked at the film, that it was about refinding purpose in life, or refinding
And family, yeah.
a role, a new role or a new purpose. I couldn't put my finger on what the director wanted from this film, so maybe you can break it down for me.
I'm sure we'll talk about it later on. So I won't jump into it right now, or else it'll be 20 minutes of me talking. Again, I wouldn't even say that the cult aspect of the film is the major focus of it. The cult aspect is just a backdrop, so the director Ari Aster can tell this real human story in the centre of it. And obviously there's a lot of fucked up things that happen throughout the whole thing. But yeah, I like this film. I would go as far as saying I love this film.
Oh, strong words.
I think we're friends with some bizarre people, Jamie.
Man.
I think it's a modern horror classic on the same level as something like Rosemary's Baby or The Shining or even The Exorcist.
I totally disagree with that, but okay.
Yeah, well, what's new about that? Jamie?
I planned to watch this film twice, like I did for Sorry to Bother You, and I just couldn't do it, mainly because it was just in my head. I was trying to decipher, like, what the fuck I just watched. It was that level of strange to me that, like, I just needed time to process what I just saw. I think, from my opinion, this has to be up there with one of the strangest films I've ever seen. As I was watching this, and I was watching the cult, and I was watching all the characters do what they do, I was getting, like, Wicker Man vibes, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, very strong Wicker Man vibes in this film.
I enjoyed the film for the most part, but I don't think it's a film I can go back and watch again. Maybe in, like, when some time passes by and, like, I might feel like revisiting, but I don't think I'd be able to watch that and go, oh my god, I fucking love that film, I'm gonna throw it on again. You know what I mean?
I think psychedelics would help watching it a second time. I think that'd be something that could push you to watch it a second time. After that, I'm with Jamie. It'd be a while before I'd watch it. I watch it repeatedly.
It's just every week. You always disagree.
Yeah, so it's 2 against 1. So maybe you should look in the mirror and go, okay, there's something wrong with me.
Maybe there's something wrong with everyone else, Chris. Maybe it's not me.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, my friend.
So how did we feel about the story, all in all?
Well, let's break down the story first. It opens with our main character, Danny. Her sister commits suicide. It leads to a breakdown of her relationship with her boyfriend, and they inevitably travel to Sweden as part of a group project for college for her boyfriend and his classmates, and then we find out that they've become part of this commune or cult that has, I suppose, a lot of rituals around death, I guess is a good breakdown of the flow of this film. But in terms of how did I feel about it, I think, to be fair to the two of you, I do think the film is maybe slightly long. Maybe.
It's 2.5 hours. But I don't have a problem with the 2.5 hours because I didn't feel, and I enjoyed the slow build. That was not an issue.
No, exactly.
It wasn't an issue for me either, but I think it would be an issue for other people.
A film like this needed to be that long, because like if it could have gone by well, like I feel like 2 hours wouldn't be enough to actually get the full point of this film across. You know what I mean?
So in conclusion, yeah, that's about all of criticism I have for this film.
Just the running time.
Well, it's not even really a criticism. I think it might be a criticism for other people, but it's not really a criticism for me.
I see. Okay.
But in terms of the story, I felt there was just, it didn't really give answers to. So the sister killed the parents and herself by poisonous gas, probably carbon monoxide or something. Is that what happens at the start?
Yeah.
It was from the car. She had the car running in the garage.
Yeah, that's a lot of effort, by the way. I mean, like if she wanted to do that, why didn't she just sit in the car?
We get no answers of why she takes the. I mean, it's just a random event. That's, there's no explanation really. There's no real there's no backstory to it. Jump in there, Nathan, please.
They do give a lot of context in the first 20 minutes of the film.
Oh yeah, and can I just say it is a brilliant intro to the whole film because it gives you that proper like holy shit, what the fuck just happened feeling throughout the whole film. Then it really sets the tone properly. Going
back to the Chris's question about the suicide, they do give a lot of context to that because they say that the sister is bipolar and that she's been dealing with this struggle for a couple of years and that she'd been in and out of mental institutions and that this had been slowly building. Again, it's only in the first 20 minutes of the film, so if you missed it...
No, I was aware of the sister's issues and stuff like that, but it was just, I found the scenario kind of weird. All they say is that the sister has issues, and then the next thing, she takes her life, she takes the parents' life, and then that's it. We get a little flashback.
She's bipolar.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, like... I just feel like the audience could do with a bit more than that. We get a little flashback at one point in the movie where the three of them are sitting on the couch. I think it's where she passes out after taking the mushrooms and she dreams about it. Just before she wakes up, we get a close-up shot of the sister turning her head and looking directly at her. And that's it. And it just seems, to me, it just seemed a little out of place.
That's just Danny dealing with her trauma, though.
Do you feel like the whole setting of the suicide and the parents' death, do you think how it looked, how it was, the hose, the card, all the tape, do you think that was just for like a wow factor maybe?
It was probably a bit overly planned.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was definitely
probably a bit too elaborate. It didn't really bother me because it was only at the start of the film and it wasn't a major thing. And they kind of used that visual of her wearing the mask with the holes later in the film. I think that it works well in places like that to build tension. But yeah, I can see that as a criticism of it just being a bit too elaborate.
Speaking of, right, there are times where she's crying, screaming. I had to turn down the television because it was just so loud. And I had to do that at the beginning, and I had to do that at the end when she, has the whole group screaming with her. Did you find your way? Did you find yourselves having to turn it down?
No, I didn't have to turn it up or turn it down. I felt like if one of the goals of the movie was to make the audience, the viewer, feel uncomfortable, I thought it did a great job of that. It made you feel very uneasy and uncomfortable at times. Just the wailing of the cries, some of the score with the violin music and stuff just makes you feel very uneasy and stuff like that. To answer your question, I don't remember feel like, I should turn that down, but I did sit there and go, okay, that's making me feel uncomfortable, which is good because that's what it wanted to do. I presume that's what they wanted to do. That was the goal, to make you feel uneasy. Like
you're watching this person go through an incredibly traumatic portion of their life, and the director's letting you watch it. And I think, if that was a real life situation, you would feel uncomfortable as well.
But like it goes down to like how the film makes you feel uncomfortable. Like with the score, there were moments. Do you remember when the elders are getting carried off to, the cliff?
Yeah,
they get taken away from the table. during the score, I noticed that like there's moments in it where an instrument will go out of tune and then just keep playing. Did you notice that as well?
Well, I think that's because a lot of the music in the film, it's a mix of diegetic and non-diegetic, meaning that some of it is in the actual scene and some of it then is added in post-production. So I think
that's not a criticism, by the way.
No, I do think that's what you kind of what you heard in that scene, is that there was someone playing an instrument, maybe on set, and they missed a note or something.
If that's the case, then bravo, because it definitely like made you feel like, okay, something's not right here. You know, like something's gonna happen.
The music in this film is incredible for building tension, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think everything that we hear or see in the movie is intentional. I don't think anything was by happy chance or, in my opinion, I don't think so. I think it's there for a reason. There's a purpose behind everything.
Yeah, Ari Aster has only made one film before this, and he's working on his next one now. So this is only his second film, and even if you go back and you watch Hereditary, you can tell that he's very deliberate with the choices that he makes and what he puts in the frame, and even background production design in terms of what's on shelves. And we see it in this film as well. Like, did you notice the tapestries throughout the film?
Yeah.
The tapestries throughout the film, even at the very start, you see a big picture of the lunar cycle showing the solstice. And I think in the very next scene, Danny's in her bedroom, you see a big tapestry of a bear and a little girl, which obviously that hints towards the ending of the film.
That'd be one of the reasons you'd have to watch the movie a second time, because you'd be stopping and rewinding and pausing if you wanted to look at all the little finer details like that in the movie.
And his previous film, Hereditary, is very like that as well, where he wants you to go back and discover more and more about the film and this broader mythology that he's trying to build within the work. Because you brought it up, Jamie, can we jump into the suicide scene with the two older people? What did you make of that?
It was definitely it caught me off guard in the way that like I didn't realize what's going to happen until 10 minutes beforehand, if you get what I mean. Like, you know where it's leading, but you don't want to see it. You know what I mean? But then when you see how they are reacting, and then you see how Jack Raynor's character is acting, like their group, unlike the other group. Was it David and Connie? I think their characters' names were. And they're freaking out, like of course they would be, because any sane person would be freaking out to watching that. But it definitely gives you like a sense of how you're supposed to react versus how they're reacting.
Out of the whole group, I think Danny is the only one that doesn't have kind of a visceral reaction, because she's already become desensitized to this kind of extreme violence because of what happened to her parents.
I think Danny's already, as you said, that she's already overwhelmed emotionally with everything that she's gone through, so I don't think she fully understands how to react to this. Well, we see it later, I think, but in the moment she doesn't know how to react to it. And then the boyfriend and the boyfriend's friend, I feel, because they're both doing their thesis on
anthropology.
Yeah, so they're already probably aware and custom of this kind of stuff, so they're kind of... I still think, obviously, in real life, most human beings would react closer to the two British people, but I think they were kind of... I think they understood what was going on better, because it's something that they've read and studied about. And I can definitely relate to the two British people. I think their reaction is probably the reaction that you'd expect in that situation for someone who was
wanting to get the hell out and try to save the people. Yeah.
That's something I had an issue with the movie. I don't have to talk about it now because we're still talking about the scene, but I just think some of the decisions by the characters was very questionable.
We will talk about that immediately after.
100%, exactly.
I'd like to know what you're talking about. But that suicide scene, you're going to hear it a lot, but I really liked it.
I liked it too.
Yeah.
A lot of the details in the backgrounds, like did you see when they cut their hands, they wiped their hands off stone tablets before they jumped with blood. If you look in the background, there's like hundreds of stone tablets that have been wiped with blood in the backgrounds to give you a hint of like the ceremony that's supposed to take place. What did you think of the actual practical effects of the suicide?
I gotta say, when I was watching the scene, I only knew what was coming when they were having the dinner. I had a feeling that we were going to get something like that, and then once we got the shot of the mountain and stuff, like the cliff, I was prepared, and in my head the whole time I was like, oh great, we're going to see a rag doll thrown off a cliff now or some sort, and it's going to look awful. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it looked probably one of the best I've seen when it came to doing a scene like that, a graphic scene like that. It looked real, it was gruesome, impactful. I thought they did a great job of it.
For the woman, her suicide, I thought was brilliantly done. But for the male, I didn't think looked very well. It was a wide angle, preferred to the close, panning down. So that might have made it look a bit weirder for my taste, but
I think it looked great when he fell down and like broke his two legs. Like,
Yeah.
it was,
oh yeah, when I got close up and you actually saw the wound,
Yeah.
like it was crazy. And then the hammer then.
Thought they both look well, but obviously the woman in the first I was like, oh, that was impressive. That's the best I've seen when it came to something like that. That looked, you could have fooled me. Like, yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah.
but I think maybe the actual crushing of the skull, maybe if they had shown slightly less, would have been a bit better.
I think the issue I had with the skull, not that it was an issue, because again, one of the best I've seen when it comes to that isn't completely done by CGI. This it's just the skull. It wasn't as impact when he slams the hammer down. It's not overly impactful. By no means was it bad. I've seen a lot worse than that.
Oh, but it took like the third hit, right, for it to actually like cave in.
There's 3 hits, yeah. But
Yeah.
because we're on the topic, some of the violence in this film, it's not in it that much, but when the violence arrives, it is
Oh, it's brutal.
brutal. It is
Yeah.
brutal. When we see what happened to David later in the film, he's been strung up like was it called, like a blood falcon or something from,
Yeah.
or a bloody eagle, I think, from.
Is
kind
is
of
that when he had
Norse.
the dandelions in his eyes or something?
He had the dandelions in his eyes, and his back was open, and his lungs
Yeah.
were taken out. Oh, that was
Yeah.
unbelievably brutal. And then we see Will Poulter's. He gets his face taken off, and someone's wearing his face.
For me, I don't know about you guys, but that was like very unexpected. When that happened, I was like completely caught off guard. I didn't expect something like that to happen.
I have a question that we won't answer straight away, because we'll let Chris get into some of his issues with the character choices. But I had this question the first time I watched it, and I had it even more the second time I watched it. Did some of these characters maybe deserve what happened to them?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, they were warned.
I don't think so.
They were warned.
Okay, but that's
not to disrespect stuff.
Yeah, but that's different because you'd expect, like, instead of getting your man getting his head beaten in with a stick, you'd think he'd get thrown out rather than, killed. You know what I mean? He just...
Will Poulter is a fucking idiot in this film. He's an absolute... I mean, like, even if you didn't know that was a sacred tree, what are you doing pissing on the tree in front of everyone in an environment like that? So I was sitting there going, like, I didn't... Maybe that's the issue I had with the film. I didn't care about the characters. I really didn't, like, other than Danny and the boyfriend, because I think the boyfriend got a raw deal. I'm sorry, like, I think he got a raw deal.
Okay, so we're into now with your issues with some of the character choices, I guess, are we?
Yeah, so Will, I didn't care about Will, and I thought he was a fucking idiot. Yeah, as Jamie said, like, Will, again, we're not dealing with a normal group of people. A normal group of people would just cast you out and say, don't you ever come back here again.
Yeah.
But we're not that's not what we're dealing with here. Like, we're dealing with punishment and teaching a lesson.
I think Will Poulter is supposed to, like, be playing this stereotypical ignorant American tourist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's... I can kind of see where you're coming from, but I think they set it up, him being an asshole, well enough at the start of the film that I didn't have maybe too much of a problem with him actually pissing on the tree. Because it seems like something that character would do.
At the very start, do you mean like when he was talking your man into breaking up with her straight off, or...
Well, he was right about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
was.
mind that either.
Really
And if
right.
they were trying to get that across when he asked to be let out of the boot and he refuses to let him out of the boot, like, that's not... I wasn't watching going, oh, what a dick. I was kind of like... If anything, I was like, oh, I kind of get where he's coming from. Do you know, I kind of... He's they're obviously best friends and he's trying to look out for his best friend, like. Another scene is when they take the mushrooms and Will is having an awful time. He's like, everyone lie down.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the record here and say that I can totally relate to that situation with dealing with people like that.
Yeah.
Kudos to the, like, obviously the filmmaker or the person who
Same
screenwrote this film
Same person.
understands these scenarios, that understands these situations.
Yeah, it was a great scene and encapsulated that whole experience very well.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
Definitely.
nice touch when Danny started to freak out and walk away. That's when Will decided to go, you know what, you guys are my family. It was a nice touch to, like, put into that, like, freak out.
Well, yeah, a lot of the point of the film is that she obviously she doesn't feel a part of their group, which is kind of on purpose because of like Will Poulter. You know, he obviously doesn't want her there. And even her boyfriend doesn't want her around really anymore.
The film spends a lot of the time setting up the boyfriend that doesn't want to be in the relationship, but at the same, he does a lot right by her as well.
When? So I think he's the worst character.
Really?
In terms of an actual human being, I think he's the worst character in the film.
He, like, as much as he bitches about it, he's still there for her when the sister doesn't reply and stuff. He still comforts her. He still comes over and see her and stuff like that. He still invites her to come on the trip. And I know you're saying, oh, he had it in his head that she wouldn't come, but that's just something that you would probably say to your friends. I honestly felt he did want her, or he was being a genuine human and didn't want to leave her on her own while she was going through what she was going. This was my interpretation.
I think.
Oh yes, yeah.
I think he felt guilty more than anything else.
Maybe. People said, like, they gave out that he forgot her birthday and stuff. I'm sorry, they just went on a massive psychedelic trip for the day of her birthday or whatever. I let that one slide as well, and then he tried to make up to her with a cake and.
Oh well, he didn't. He was given the cake. He was given the cake by his Swedish friend.
See, now I don't remember seeing that.
But if you watch the whole film, I'm pretty sure he never apologizes once for anything, and he does a lot of shitty things. Like, he had planned on going away to Sweden like the following week and just hadn't told her. Like, he had the plane ticket booked, didn't tell her. And then when she confronts him, she's the one who ends up apologizing, because you can tell that she's relying on him for support. It does. The film does a great job of that, because you don't say sorry as being apologetic. You're saying sorry as in too bad. Yeah. But she's the one that's being very understanding, saying, I'm not saying that you can't go. I just wish you would have said it to me before you had it booked.
Yeah, she said it was like, it was weird that you didn't mention it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she doesn't want to lose him, because obviously he's a huge support network in her life, even if he doesn't really care that much.
I think he gets a raw deal at the end, because no matter what, in my interpretation, I don't think you changed my mind. He is taken back. This isn't the word I wanted to use, but he's somewhat disgusted in finding out about the incest and the fact that your one with the red hair has chosen him as the one that she wants to be with. He has no interest whatsoever, and they basically drug him for it to happen.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but he did show a bit of interest at the start of the film to the redhead before he was drugged.
Why? Because when they're doing the dance, and then she kicks him, and then himself and Mark jump up, and that was strange. I mean, you had no, like, that was a weird one. Like, that just came out of nowhere.
What did you think of her actually choosing him? How she did it? Do you remember?
I presume if you go back and look at the tapestry things, that she did exactly what the tapestry.
Yeah, that one that like really unsettled me when I saw the whole art stuff when it was panning through. It's like, oh, okay.
You're getting these scenes without actually seeing them, if that makes sense. Like, we know all of this stuff has happened once we get to that point in the film, but we just don't see it.
You're getting clued in regardless.
But it played out differently, though.
In what way?
Yeah.
The art makes it seem like, it's a love potion. You're gonna fall in love and it's gonna work, but it didn't. I didn't get that vibe from him. But
he was drugged.
Like, it seemed like that's what I mean. He was drugged. Like,
yeah,
he
but
wasn't,
sure. Like, what's a love potion?
I know, but still, it's not the same thing. Like if the art is telling you one thing.
Yeah, but like, Jamie,
you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but I'm gonna break it to you, Jamie, and it might.
I understand. I understand.
But love potions don't actually exist.
I know they don't actually exist. That's not the point. That's not what I'm trying to say. I don't know. It wasn't the same thing on the art than it was at the end, in my opinion.
Okay, I mean, I disagree. I kind of don't know what to tell you. I think it's pretty plainly exactly what's on the tapestry is what happens in the film.
She does the ritual, because you get the pie with the scrapings in it, and you get the drink with the pie of the questionable juice.
Yeah, and your man's freaking out, and your man just claps in his face, and the whole world just shifts. It's brilliant. God, I love the visual effects in this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we talk about that for a second? Yeah, those visual effects are incredible when they're psychedelic trip. The lens distorts all around them and everything. And if you look in the background towards the end of the film, do you know when she's being carried after she's been crowned queen? If you look in the background in the trees and in the flowers, you can actually see her sister's face.
I didn't see that either.
Like we've said, like
this,
that. I think we all agree that this film is at least it is rewatchable.
Yeah, it's just like as a first view, thing. Like, you do have to like give it some time to digest.
As a study, it's rewatchable on multiple occasions. But for me, as a entertainment value, I probably wouldn't watch it for quite some time. But definitely on a study purpose. And I really enjoyed when she's sitting on the chair made of leaves and stuff like that, and they just start to come up. Yeah, I thought that was just really, really well done. It didn't look, maybe other people disagree with me, but I didn't think it looked fake. I didn't think and it wasn't over the top. It was just really nicely done. They do this little shot where you see the centerpiece of the table. I think it's the food, and that just starts to kind of get a wave and psychedelic motion to it. Nothing over the top, just enough to just know, right, where this is what we're...
Everything is breathing when they're in that perspective. So the world is alive.
Yeah.
The film has a lot of common with kind of old folklore fairy tales. So like we see Dani obviously throughout the film is kind of becoming more in touch and in tune with nature. She's taking these psychedelic drugs, and this is when we see kind of the world breathing and kind of living around her.
Yeah. Her feet, when she starts to turn into like straw, she looks down at her 2 feet and it starts to turn into like, it looked like twigs or hay or some sort of strains of grass or something. Like, it was really well done.
Did you notice the subtitles?
That is something I meant to ask you at the start of the show, Nathan. If there was meant to be subtitles for the non-English parts, I didn't get.
No, there's no subtitles. You're not supposed to know, because there's obviously the director, Ari Aster, wanted you to feel as isolated as characters did. So again, that's a very subtle thing you don't maybe notice till halfway through the film, but it's brilliant.
Dani starts speaking Swedish out of nowhere during the competition.
They do start speaking in like a language, herself and her partner in the dance. Again, that's to signify her becoming more a part of this cult. Yeah. What about that sex scene?
Can I go on the record and say that I laughed multiple times during this film, and the sex scene was definitely one of them.
In Sweden, this film is actually not considered a horror. It's considered a black comedy.
I don't consider it a horror either, to be honest. But then again, some of us are very desensitized from what makes a horror movie anyway. So it's a psychological something. Psychological drama. I can't call it a horror. I'm sorry.
I would consider it a drama with horror aspects, meaning just not horror as in, jump scares, or it's just very eerie at times, especially when your man gets his head beaten in at the end when he's taking pictures. Like that, it's not straight out horror.
But would you consider The Exorcist a horror?
Parts. Well, yeah.
But why?
Yeah, you would.
It's the same thing.
But you're talking different times as well. That's what I would be bringing into consideration. A horror movie.
This film is trying to emulate films from the 70s.
Yeah, and I know, and you anyone who watches Wicker Man today would go, "That's a horror." Well, yes, that was a horror back in its day. Yeah, that was one of the pinnacle horrors back in its day. But I wouldn't have an argument with someone calling it a horror, because that is up to them. What genre they put it in. Personally, I don't see it.
If someone came to me and told me that they were scared watching this film, I wouldn't tell them they were wrong to be, because there were definitely eerie moments in the film for someone to feel some bit like, okay, I kind of want to stop watching this in some way.
But when's the last time you were scared in a horror film?
Jeez. I'm trying to think back now. Just damn it.
Do you see what I mean? Like, horror is one of these genres that has it's completely kind of metamorphosized since the 60s and 70s, because people have become so desensitized to what's being put on the screen. The definition of horror has to adjust with that.
100.
Nobody's going to go back and watch The Exorcist and be scared. It's not going to happen.
Well, it's again, it does have elements that when you break it down, some people can view as terrifying, whether it's being possessed by the demon, the crab backwards and she opens them out and all the blood comes out, and just there's parts in it. I mean, the only thing this movie achieved for me in terms of a horror is I felt uncomfortable at times, and I just don't. To me, it's just that doesn't fall under the category for horror for me. Again, it's psychological drama.
What does fall under the category of horror?
Something that attempts to scare you, whether it is mentally or physically by a jump scare or something like that. That to me is a horror. You can go graphical horror, I suppose, where there's brutality and gruesomeness and stuff like that. And I didn't get that, except for the bit at the end where you see the male British character with the dandelions in his eyes and shoulders or back ripped up and stuff like that. That'd be, but again, that can still, for me, just still fall under the category of. So what is hold on now. What is the name of the movie? I think it's Denzel Washington. The Bone Collector. That's, to me, that's not a horror. What would you call The Bone Collector?
It's a psychological thriller.
I think this is a mixture of thriller drama, psychological thriller versus psychological drama. But I'm going to stand strong and say it's not a horror
like,
to
Silence
me.
of the Lambs, right? In that aspect, psychological thriller rather than drama. Really, I didn't think of it was
Silence
scary.
of the Lambs is a horror.
I didn't think it was. Okay,
It's
'cause then- 'cause,
absolutely
like,
a horror. This is what I'm saying, though. People have become so desensitized that the meaning of what a horror is has changed. Midsommar.
Yeah.
Oh, so
or-
you're on the argument that
It is a
Midsommar
horror.
is a horror, and Chris is saying it's not a horror. Oh, I'm on
It's
Chris's side on this.
absolutely a
one.
horror.
It's not a
yeah.
horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, what a fucking shock.
Sorry, man, but I'm on a.
Okay, well, do you know what? You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to be right.
This is what we have to deal with week in, week out. I think
It is a horror.
No,
You know, I
I
can't
don't
really
think
say anything else.
it's not a horror.
It is a horror.
It's not a horror.
None of you have still given me one example of what. Give me an example of a
Chapter
horror
1.
film.
Yeah,
It.
Chapter 1. Yeah.
Go back and look at The Exorcist and look
Why
at
are you
it.
comparing The Exorcist?
Man,
to
The
there
definition
is-
of what horror has
there's
changed
what?
is so different.
There's like 40 years of a difference between those movies, man. You can't compare Exorcist and It. We're talking about now, in today's world, what is a horror movie?
But it is also
But
a
no,
coming of age story.
But
You
but
can't box a
but
horror into
But
one
that's
thing.
up to you to consider it a horror movie, because most horror movies use comedic elements to get the people off guard. That is the sign of a good horror movie, because you're using comedic formulas to get the audience unaware. So, I mean, if you found
This
parts
film does
funny,
that as
then
well.
that was the goal of the movie, because it wanted to get you unaware for when the jump aspect or the
Could you say
the horror
that
aspect
that,
came in
like,
after.
In today's standards, the horror genre is completely subjective, and like as to like it's literally just down to the person whether they are scared, they can call it a horror, because like
No.
I know
well, like,
horror is
a
a
genre
genre,
is
but
a
I'm
genre,
saying,
like,
Horror
like,
is
today's
fluid.
standards, do you think horror as a genre is subjective?
Oh, well, of course it's subject. I mean, there's people that will watch movies like The Nun or Insidious and stuff and be absolutely terrified of it. And I'll watch it and I will laugh my ass off and say this is a bad movie. Like, do you know what is?
Like, it's definitely one of the it's definitely the weakest out of the Conjuring saga. There is definitely I can see what Chris is saying by bringing up It, because like It Chapter 1 I would consider a horror, and I'm assuming you wouldn't consider it a horror, Nathan. It Chapter 1, right?
It is a horror. It was marketed as a horror. It was made to be a horror. But it's also a coming of age story and drama. Most genres, we're talking about drama, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, they are all very much set in stone. Maybe sci-fi is a bit more fluid than the other ones. But horror is the most fluid genre that there is, because people's perception of what is scary changes over time. I know I keep going back to The Exorcist, but you have to go back to The Exorcist and look at it, that it was a time, it came out around the time of the Satanic Panic. So a lot of people found it disturbing. We're not going through a Satanic Panic at the moment, so people aren't finding it scary. And obviously people don't find the effects hold up because we have CGI effects now. And people aren't as into practical effects and they don't find them as realistic.
Well, I still respect The Exorcist, and there's scenes in that movie that I even watch now in my late 30s I find uncomfortable and disturbing. Like,
yeah, I agree, but you also said you found scenes in this one uncomfortable and disturbing. I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to get to the root of what we actually think horror is.
I think what I'm so you're looking at the fantasy element of someone being possessed by a demon versus what human people are capable of, and I think I find the fantasy more disturbing or frightening than I do of what humans are capable of.
I'm really trying to understand where you're coming from, Nathan, because you're trying to argue that Midsommar is a horror film, but from what I saw, Midsommar
horror film.
is a psychological drama, like we said, but like okay, if I could make a compromise, I'd say it's a psychological drama with horror aspects. That's how I'd put it.
And I would say absolutely not. I would say it's a psychological horror with drama elements.
All right, we've all made our points clear, and we'll agree to disagree. What is the next thing that we must talk about with this film?
So I want to know what a comedy is.
Oh.
I really what's your man's name again? Jack Raynor. That sex scene where he starts riding your one. I said that like such a Limerick person. Starts riding your one, and of course there is a group of women singing, and then your one gets closer and holds the red hair's hand and starts and kneels right down into Christian's face. And it's just when he turns around and he looks at her with those big stupid eyes, I just burst out laughing. I was like, this is the funniest fucking shit.
But I think it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, it is. Like even
as well as the story.
I read that the director wanted it to be like the reason there's a group of naked elderly women standing there going through the process with them is he found it funny. He wanted the audience to find it funny. I think a lot of people had a problem with that because they were like, you could have just had them fully clothed and probably still had close to the same effect. So they've. I think you kind of could. I get what people are saying. So a lot of people are on the fence of saying that this was merely just for the director's enjoyment.
Because there's a wow factor there. You know what I mean? There's like when you walk into that room and they're all just there. There's a whole aesthetic to the whole setup.
True. It's completely absurd. It's just. Yeah. But it's something that you would expect. Like we've already seen what the cult is capable of, so it fits in with where the cult is in terms of absurdness and just ludicrous behaviour.
I also read about that scene. Is when Christian comes running out and he's naked. Yeah. It was actually Jack Raynor's idea for him to run out naked because he wanted it to be a subversion of, classic films like The Last House on the Left, where it's obviously that's a lot of naked women running around. He wanted it to be a subversion of that, where instead of a naked woman running around, it was a naked man.
It fits in with, I think, what the movie is trying to accomplish, and it's just absolute absurdness, and it's a cult film.
Yeah.
And we got to see a swinging dong.
We did get to see a swinging dong. We got to see some old titties.
Nothing was held back in this film.
What do you think of the cinematography?
Cinematography, I really enjoyed. I thought it was very really, really beautiful to look, and it worked beautifully with the VFX as well. Just spot on.
A lot of the shot compositions, I think, were very creative as well. What do you think, Chris?
I liked the difference, we could say, between how everything is shot early on in the movie when they're in America. Everything's quite dark and
it's kind of stereotypical of what you'd expect of a film like that,
and what you would exactly what you said there. And then when we get to Sweden, everything's very bright-eyed, colourful, energetic and stuff. So I really liked it, but I did have issue with some. There's a lot of shots that I really liked, and there's one or two, maybe three shots that I didn't like.
Do you know which ones they are off the top of your head?
So I really enjoyed the transition of when Danny goes to the bathroom.
That was very
and
good. But the trailer ruined it for me though, because we saw it in the trailer, so I knew it was coming. My
issue with that is they do it a second time when she's on the mushrooms and she runs into the cubicle. They do it a second time. So so it's not so much that I have issue with the type of shots; it's the fact of it reoccurring. So when we get the shot of the camera's up quite high on a wide angle, and then it does this lovely dip down, and then you're down on a lower level in perspective of the characters. I think one of the best examples is when we see the women picking daffodils or dandelions walking backwards. We go from a tall shot where we can see everyone over by the tables where they're going to eat, and when the camera pans down, we still see the people at the tables eating, but now we see the other women that are picking, and it's so smoothly and lovely done. But they do it 3, maybe 4 times, and I just feel like it gave me like, is this a one-trick pony kind of a deal? Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was lovely the first time. once he repeated it 2-3 times, it was kind of like, is that all you've got? Did anyone else pick up on that?
So just to, because I just went back and looked. So just to confirm that when she's on mushrooms and she runs into the bathroom, is that scene you were talking about?
I think I just off the top of my head.
So all I'd say is that the scene that you're talking about when she's on the mushrooms in the bathroom, they don't use that shot.
Okay,
It's just a plain static shot.
I could be getting mixed. Nathan, this is what you keep telling me every
keep
week
meaning
to do.
to,
now.
Chris.
So,
just keep forgetting. Like,
when I was watching it this time, it was when they've just arrived in Sweden and they're driving down the highway, and they're driving. The camera kind of flips that way. It goes upside down.
Yes.
I thought that was very good to signify that they are now kind of, this group of people is now entering like a different world where everything's kind of flipped upside down, because obviously the commune, I don't think it has electricity.
yeah, because they're all walking around with like torches and lanterns, right? So yeah.
Well, but they do mention when the British couple are leaving that there was phone calls made, so they must have a telephone line of some sort, or
just a mobile phone. Oh no, they couldn't have a mobile phone because they don't have reception.
So maybe that's maybe that's maybe that's a plot hole. You know, like I don't know.
Oh well, hold on. Well, actually,
Yeah, they lied. We never saw the phone call. They just said that the second David, the character, disappeared. That because they said that to Connie and they told her that he left without her, that there was not enough room.
So again, this falls back on what Nathan was saying, where the characters are given signs throughout the film that they need to get out of here, and this is what I mean. Like the characters are fucking stupid.
There's actually, speaking of those two, right, in that moment, that's the last time we see Connie. She's gone then. After that, we never see her again.
No, we see her body.
Yeah,
we actually hear her die. Do you remember when Danny is in like the kind of shed making buns? She's making pies. In the background, you can hear a scream and a splash of water. At the end of the film, when they're holding the ritual and they're burning Christian, you can actually see Connie's body being wheeled up to the enclosure, and it's all bloated and wet. Yeah. So she was obviously drowned in a nearby lake. It is answered, but it's in the background of the film, and you don't really need it.
And may I say, Jack looks amazing in the bear. Just that. And another part that I just started laughing my ass off when they put him inside the bear.
Yeah. It was a nice touch though, because when two brothers, or like the two people that offer themselves up, they're given their drugs or whatever. Go in without pain and go in without fear. And the guy that went in without pain was the first one to start screaming. Well, the one that we saw.
They believe in these kind of ridiculous beliefs that just aren't true. I imagine that this was some kind of commentary for the director, but the person who like writes the scriptures and writes like their version of the Bible is inbred and has like clearly a physical and a mental disability, and yet he's in charge of their entire belief system and their religion, and they replicate that. And anytime someone with a disability or who's mentally able is born, they automatically become like this.
Yeah, because he specifically calls him an oracle. I'd love to hear a director's commentary version of this film just to see what he'd say.
Do you know what? I'm going to have a sidebar here because I got to talk about something, and it's a very important issue.
Throw it out.
How is it that Disney are the only fucking people to learn to put commentary and behind the scenes shit on their streaming website? All the Disney shows, all the Disney films, all of their behind-the-scenes extras and commentary tracks are on the Disney Plus service.
They probably looked at all the streaming services and realized that they didn't do any of this, so they were like, cool, we can capitalize on this.
Obviously, you feel the same way as about me. I really appreciate that stuff, and I actually I find myself more interested in that aspect than I do sometimes of the actual film or the program I'm watching. Like,
yeah. But I mean, you look at fucking Lord of the Rings, and you look at the behind the scenes extras and the commentary tracks, and they are as important to film literacy as any book out there. It's just so crazy. I know we're getting off topic.
Yeah,
here.
come on. Well, let's peel it back. There was two scenes I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to see did anyone pick up on it, or maybe they have a different opinion to me about it. But the scene where Danny is crying after learning the debt, and she's with the boyfriend, we zoom out through the window into the snow.
That was a good shot.
I fucking loved that so much.
Lovely. But fuck me, why did we hang so long on the snow? It's absurdly long. How long it is, man. It's you're sitting there going, oh, is something supposed to happen here or what? It just goes on and fucking on.
Well, I think it's to add to the immediate cut into like summer.
It's too long. I agree with you and I understand, but you could have made it's a couple of seconds too long. 5 to 10 seconds too long. It just goes on and on and on.
Specifically, because like when I just remember watching it, and then just like, you know, Florence's performance throughout that, you know, her sort of screaming and her howling. I think it was trying to portray her performance and really give off that vibe of like unnerving, you know, like to really sell it. You know what I mean? That's probably what the whole point was.
I know, but they hang on it for about 25 seconds, like it's up, and I'm not talking about from the zoom in. Once we go through the window and just have the snow, we're on it for like 20 seconds, lads. It's ridiculous. 10 to 15 was more than enough to accomplish that. I'm just go back, and maybe I'm wrong. Just go back and have another quick look. I think it'll say okay. It goes on a little bit too long.
So hold on, I'll just jump in there. So the shot outside with the snow, it lasts for 26 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, come on, 26 seconds is mental.
I liked it. What can I say?
But you just disagree with me on everything anyway. So
no, but I did. I have that specifically in my notes. That I really liked that scene.
I really liked the scene too. I think at least 6 seconds to 11 seconds could have been cut off that last bit there. I think there could have been a couple of bars of the music cut off there. If
You're
that's
not wrong
what
at
they
all,
were going
Chris.
for.
I can agree with you on that to a point. I can just see, I can make an argument as to why that's there. But I completely agree with you. It does go on for a bit.
I feel, but you're explaining what I already understand about the scene, and I feel like they've already accomplished that by the time we get to 15 to 20 seconds. I get what you're saying.
No, I'm not going to argue with you. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is go to the scene there where we get tall, wide, and then it pans down onto the girls walking backwards, picking the dandelions or whatever. We get a jump cut.
Oh yeah, okay.
Do you see?
I see.
It's a little.
Yeah, I see.
But I get what they're doing because it conveys time has passed, but it's still a weird cut.
Yeah, it's a little janky. I'll give you that.
And that they were my only two issues when it came to shots in the movie. I know we already said it, but the colours of things, like the whatever that building is that everyone burnt at the end and stuff. When you see that for the first time, it's just sticks out, the whole background and everything about
and, like,
it.
It's always in the center frame whenever you see it as well. It's good.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the actual colour correction or if it was while they were in production, but some of the colours in this film are just
it's oversaturated for sure, but not absurdly oversaturated, just enough to
to give the feeling that they're in another world.
Yeah,
again,
very eye-catching.
Yeah.
Were we happy to maybe move on to acting?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've only seen the second time seeing Florence in anything. I watched her in Fighting with My Family, which I also really enjoyed. I thought she was really good in that. And in terms of acting, I think she was the highlight in this movie for me.
Oh, she's really good in this film.
She's excellent, yeah.
I'm just trying to think, is there anyone else that did as good a job? But I think she's the standout actor in this film.
I think William Jackson Harper was great in it.
Can you remind me who that is?
It's Chidi from The Good Place.
Yeah, see, that's all. Like, I was there thinking to myself, oh, that's Chidi. Oh, cool. I like him in The Good Place. Yeah, he stood out for me in that as well. Like, I thought he played that character very well. It was definitely a change from seeing him in The Good Place, anyway.
I hope you do like seeing Florence Pugh, because you're probably going to see a lot more of her.
Oh, for sure.
Because she's in the new Black Widow film.
Yeah. Will Poulter is great in the film too, because he plays what he's supposed to be. He does it down to a T, and I it's mad that we're watching him, because I think we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about him, and I knew him from School of Comedy, an old British TV show and stuff. I always got the feeling that he was very comfortable and confident being in front of the camera, and that's
yeah.
and at such a very young age, because that we're talking, I think 8 years ago, something like that, since the show was out.
Sure, you could look at his performance in We're the Millers and then look at his performance in this film. Like, they're completely two different people. I can see what you're saying. Like, the range for this lad is actually not bad as well.
I think
He was originally supposed to play Pennywise.
Oh really?
Was he?
Yeah, he was originally
didn't
supposed
know
to play
that at all.
Pennywise.
Well, I'm delighted that they went with old Billy Boy, to be
With
honest.
Skarsgård, yeah.
I've always quite liked Will. I think he's only getting better. I think, again, just like Florence, we might see more of Will over the years. How do people feel about Jack Raynor?
I don't know.
I was never really fond of him anyway, because like the first time I saw him was the Transformers film, and like I was never really fond of him in that. I've seen one scene. What was the film you were talking about before?
Glassland.
I saw that scene only. I never saw the film. I only saw that scene, and his performance in that moment is brilliant. I need to see that film just to like see him in his element. You know what I mean? To actually get a proper opinion. But as it's standing right now, I'm not very impressed.
He played the role of the inconsiderate boyfriend, particularly the part where Danny runs over to explain that what happened with the British couple, and he does it multiple times in the movie. He's like, "Oh, really?" And then just goes straight back talking. I'm not like a simple role, but he still, he played his part. If his role was to be the dickhead boyfriend, he did it. You know, it came across on screen that you only care about yourself. You only have your interest best at heart. Like, definitely didn't think it was a standout performance. Found him bland, other than the fact that he made me laugh with his face expressions toward the end. A bit like,
yeah, when he's doped
when
out
he's
of it
doped,
and he's just looking at his big doughy eyes. Yeah.
I enjoyed Jack's performance in terms of making me laugh towards the end and stuff like that. Other than those few bits, anyone probably could have played that role. Maybe and possibly better.
I think he's pretty good in this film, but from other things that I've seen him in, I can't say I'm particularly excited to see where his career goes.
Did we talk about production design? Like, I feel like we kind of hinted at it, but we didn't really go into detail.
Unless you have something else
about
you want to add to it.
At least I wanted to make clear that the costumes and design, that the designs that were used during the scene of jumping off the cliff, really well done.
In terms of costume design, Danny throughout the whole film wears a lot of like baggy clothing and kind of plain muted colours, but by the end of the film then she's obviously the most extravagant person in the film, in terms of the big outfit she wears, which I think that was a good
that flower outfit at the end is a sight to behold.
She didn't look very comfortable, I have to admit, but it did look great.
She looked like a giant slug.
Just peeking out of the bushes.
She was moving and everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
she did.
jeez.
I liked it though. I liked it.
But that's like, there was some shots that probably cost a bit as well, like just the giant group of people near the end where they all just start screaming and stuff when the building's getting burnt. Like, it's like when they're like feeling the pain of the people that's inside or something. It's just there's a lot going on. There's always just over the top extravagant production to the film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of crane shots as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, as close to a perfect film as you can get.
Oh Jesus.
There was 2 rooms, but we already spoke about the one at the end when he's being forced into doing the deed, I should say. The way that looked and the aesthetic of the room and like the mood of everything, it worked very well production wise. And then there was another part of the film just before the May Queen dance. Jackson, that's his name, right? No, Christian is pulled into a room.
None of us can remember this.
I'm the only one that remembers his name.
Yeah.
He's been pulled into a room with all these pictures all over the walls, and it was a really, really cool room to see. And then it's all one set because he goes in the door, and then you pan across the wall into the next room to your one, and she asks how his feelings are toward the redhead. I thought was a really good production design element in there just to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, and what was weird about that scene is that you could hear Will Smith singing "Getting Jiggy with It" in the background.
Could
Did you find that strange?
I did not.
What?
No, you can't.
I was.
What do you? Yeah, where did that come from?
This is Nathan's stab at comedy, ladies and gentlemen.
What the?
But yeah, there's an
Did you
off. There's a. Well, I think I died a little on the inside. There's a lot going on in that scene. And I think that scene alone, you could pause and rewind and just try and look at all the tapestry that's going on inside in that scene.
The tapestries are fucking so well done.
Yeah,
they look incredible. From the first time you see him in, you see kind of one in, I think it's in Danny's apartment in her bedroom, and it's just so good.
The time and effort that must have gone into the little details in this movie is incredibly impressive. I think everyone got to showcase their talents in this movie. Some people got to show their acting. Some people got to show what they're capable, cinematography wise, shot wise, production design. And I keep harping on about, but the costume design and the special effects, all that's just, there's a lot to take away from this film. Nathan asked me at one point there about character decisions, and I'm not sure if I mentioned the part where Christian, while Danny is doing the whole dancing and becoming the May Queen, he's just after talking to one of the elders saying that he has been chosen to mate with your one, and he's completely creeped out and obviously feeling like something's wrong here, because when your one comes over and offers him the drink, he's like, I don't want this and stuff. And he's asking questions. He's like, what's in it? What is it? What does it do? And when he doesn't,
and she explains
that like he's not satisfied with the answers he gets, so he's like, I'm not going to take this. And she's like, no, it will release your defenses. And then he just completely changed his minds and throws it back. And it was just decisions like that where it was kind of like,
maybe that's more down to pressuring him into just
pressure.
Doing it.
What pressure?
I think that's more down to, because that happens after Danny is crowned the May Queen.
No, it's why she's dancing.
It's while she's dancing.
And she hasn't won the competition yet. He's sitting there with everyone on the ground watching the last three, I think it is.
And then after she wins, they go back to the table, and he asks the old man what the hell's
happening.
And
then he slaps his...
Yeah.
I think the point still stands though. I think that he's seeing that she's becoming more integrated and independent in this community, and he's kind of feeling kind of pushed aside, and that's why he ends up drinking it. That'd be my read of it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch it, but I felt that there wasn't enough time to perceive that. It just felt like once she says, oh, it'll let your defenses down, drink it, and she walks away, he literally just looks up and then just throws it back. Really, like it just no, I agree with you. That probably is the purpose, but I didn't pick that up straight away, or to me maybe it wasn't perceived. It just happened too quick, so I didn't perceive it like that. So maybe that's where I, coming back to the arm, what you were saying, I just felt like some characters, it's not so much the characters made well, of course they made bad decisions, but I don't think they were at times maybe they weren't perceived very well. I just didn't pick them up.
I don't know. I think especially on a rewatch, I think a lot of the characters' decisions become a lot more apparent.
There was kind of a few things just kind of left uncertain.
I definitely haven't picked up on all of it yet, but the answers are definitely there. For example, the group that arrived, the outsiders, Danny and Christian and all them, they obviously don't know what this community and this commune is like, which comes as a shock to like the people in the commune. The elders, we kind of see that throughout the film. The elders presumed that the younger people who had brought these outsiders in would have explained what this community is like. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's definitely in the film that I don't think that even I have fully grasped yet, if that makes sense.
So you'd understand where a lot of people there's audience out there that are just they're not going to get this film.
I don't think anyone could. It requires a second watch.
But I think what I think there's people that aren't going to grasp it at all. Like they're not.
The overall story and how visceral it is and the character emotions and stuff, I think you'll understand all of that pretty much when you see the film the first time. But if you want to kind of dive more deeply into it and understand why characters are doing certain things and why certain things are happening in the film, it maybe does require a second watch.
Some of it's going to feel very random to people. Like people will probably walk away from this film feeling a lot of stuff is unanswered, or at times maybe just like random and all over the place.
It kind of depends on if you're a passive watcher or if you're an engaged watcher. I think if you're an engaged watcher, you'll pick up on most of the important things in the film, if not all of them, except kind of smaller things. But if if you have your phone in one hand and you're only kind of half watching the film, you're
Oh
not
yeah,
going to understand what's
100%.
going on.
But for someone who
But I
like
think if you are engaged,
like I was watching the film for the perspective of the show, where I really have to just give myself fully to the film and try and pick up as much as I can.
it's a multi-layered film, you know. It's like
Yeah.
if you read a book once, you're only going to get the text of the book and what's actually happening in the book literally. But when you reread it, then you'll maybe start to understand the subtext of what's going on. You know, you look at something like To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's like, on the face of it, it's just a story about this good old country lawyer who's trying to defend this person. But when you reread it, it's like, okay, well, it's obviously about the effects of slavery in the South, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
You'd need to read something like To Kill a Mockingbird a second time to get the subtext, and people don't usually, but they should apply that same understanding to film. That you can't expect to get everything a film has to offer the first time you watch it, unless it's a fucking Marvel film.
Yeah. And it's great to converse with people like yourselves, where you'll pick up on one thing, someone will pick up another, and then you can say, well, I didn't look at it like that, and I can totally see where you're coming from. Yeah, it's and this is definitely one of those films where, like, if you're watching it once, there's no way you can pick up on every, unless
No.
unless
You can't.
No.
It's not possible, and it's definitely not something that the director would have intended, because who watches a film the first time and just looks at everything in the background?
Yeah.
Like, no one does that. Filmmakers want to make it rewarding to go back and rewatch a film.
I don't think it's to everyone's taste, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, but you could say that about anything, though.
I know that. Yeah, 100%. But I think
Yeah, it's definitely subjective in that sense.
I'll say it again. I think for anyone student of the film industry, multiple aspects of the film, it's definitely something that you could rewatch a couple of times, break down, try and understand what they were trying to do creatively, and incorporate into your own style. I personally think it'd be something. There's elements of this film that I would like to incorporate into my own style.
Well, it sounds like we're there already, so will we jump into recommendations? Jamie, do you want to start us off?
Would I recommend this film? Again, it really just depends. Like, I know I said earlier that everybody should see this film, but like, as you ponder on it, you know, it's just like, I for me specifically, and the people that I know for a fact, some people are not going to look at this film and want to watch it again. Again, I'd say it just depends. Like if I was talking to someone like us, a film student, 100% I'd recommend this film. But if it was the casual viewer, probably not.
Chris?
I most definitely would recommend this film to probably anybody and everybody, because even if they don't like it, I think the reaction I would get off them after watching it would be priceless and worth my time anyway. Yeah, I recommend it. I love strange films. And this is definitely a strange film. I didn't love this film. I loved aspects of the film, and I thought it was a good film. And as I've already said, that as a case study for anyone learning how to do film, there's a lot to take from it. But yeah, I'd recommend the film, and whether they like it or they don't like it, I'm sure I'm going to get a very interesting response. So Nathan, would you or would you not recommend this film?
No, I don't think I would. No, I'm obviously joking.
You can't go back.
Yeah.
You can't go back.
No,
That's it. Nathan
I
officially
think
hates this film. He hates A24. That's it.
He's been lying to us for the last 2 hours.
I think this film is it's as close to a modern day horror masterpiece as you can get.
Horror masterpiece. Okay.
Yeah, I think the same way I think everyone should watch The Shining at some point in their life, and The Exorcist. I think everyone should watch Midsommar. I think Ari Aster has so far made 2 incredible films, with the quality improving between the 2. So I'm so excited to see what his next project is. I can't wait to see what he's going to come up with next. I think he has a unique vision for filmmaking and storytelling. He's not making films like anyone else. So I think that alone warrants a recommendation of this film.
He has a particular style and taste, and it will definitely be interesting to see him go forward. I'm not saying that this movie isn't adventurous, because it's most certainly that, but I'd like him to continue to do things differently, to be more adventurous. Does that make sense? I want him to really try and push the envelope. I think I'd like that from him.
you can look online. I think the online kind of talk about this film has been not like our talk at all, where it's been a lot more divisive between people either loving or hating this film. So I think in a lot of ways he is kind of a controversial filmmaker when it comes to audience reception. So as long as he just keeps going ahead and just makes what he wants and what he thinks is cool, I'm gonna be there to see it. Like,
I think he takes elements from a lot of sources. I feel,
yeah,
there wasn't really anything that shocked me. You know, I thought things were absurd and ludicrous, but nothing that I hadn't really seen before in some shape or form in different films. So I think when I say that I want him to push the envelope, I think I want to see something from him that I haven't seen before.
Maybe you should watch Hereditary then, because there is quite a fucking shocking moment halfway through that film that I don't think anyone saw coming.
Alright, thank you for listening. This has been Industry Standard. That's Nathan and that's Chris.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.